Once more, Victor Charles was performing his one-man shows, Just We Three, in Indiana on February 1st, 1973, at Marion College in the Marion Hall Auditorium. For attendance, it was absolutely free for the curious. On February 10th, 1973, in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, writer Kathy Myers preserved the words of Victor Charles's saying, I'm here to entertain. Together we will create some theater. We need each other. To create theater, we need a story that needs telling, a storyteller and a listener. So, with a willing suspension of disbelief, let us make footprints across the sands of time. And what better place to begin than in the beginning? First lessons are cruel to a child. Parents foresee heartaches, but can do little to forestall them. The optimist says this is the best of all possible worlds. The pessimist answers, I'm afraid you're right. The more spare time we have, the less time we have to spare. I truly believe my Uncle Victor Charles was using self-therapy to heal the pains of his childhood. He orchestrated his one-man shows with topics that were clearly pointing at him and not just at his audiences. His upbringing was surrounded by a mafia culture due to the association his father, Victor Francis, was living during the 1940s and 1950s. Once again, Victor Charles's one-man shows were one of his greatest achievements as an actor, and more importantly, as a human being. My grandfather, John Allen Golden, died on February 13, 1973. He was my mother Hilda's father. I was living in British Columbia, Canada, and unfortunately I didn't attend his funeral. His two daughters, Hilda and Agnes, and his two sons, Lynn and David, stood beside my grandmother, Laura Golden, on that sad day in February. I will always hear his voice calling me, Pocky. He named me with that nickname after having the chicken pox as a child, and he taught me to push a broom around a large room, circling the dirt and into the tiny pile. I would stretch out on the living room carpet in the evening, and I ate ice cream at his feet while he sat in his lounge chair, watching his favorite television western, Gunsmoke. He was a good man, and he loved his family, and I will always have the image of him sitting at the kitchen table reading his newspaper, with my grandmother Laura preparing our morning breakfast, and when I walked in, he would look up and say, "Good morning, Pocky." On March 6, 1973, Victor Charles was in the television program Crime Club, starring Lloyd Bridges, and he commented about it saying, I play a retired federal judge who is the founder and confidant of a crime club in Los Angeles. An organization with a name like Crime Club, with me involved, conjures up images of all sorts of evil doings. But the name is misleading. The Crime Club is really an organization of men engaged in solving crime, not causing them. Its members are detectives on all levels, and I'm sort of a father figure. It is refreshing to play a nice guy for a change, but my fans don't have to worry. I'm not quite prepared to make a habit of it just yet. My Uncle Victor Charles, unfortunately, didn't stay long as the good guy in the television motion picture Crime Club because the series was discontinued. It's a shame he couldn't have gone longer to be able to show a more human side of his character and to bring forth a more positive image as an actor. If Crime Club had continued, it may have encouraged other television programs to cast him as their good guy. On April 24th, 1973, Victor Charles was in the television program The Lie, starring Elizabeth Wilson and George Segal. This production was scripted by legendary Ingmar Bergman. On July 28, 1973, Victor Charles was in the television program Great Mysteries in the episode of Money to Burn, and the host of the show was Orson Welles. And one day later, on July 29, 1973, Victor Charles commented in an article saying, "If humor is based on the unexpected, then Nixon has a lot to be funny about. But I can never see him telling a good joke. I am more reluctant to the closing of a bookstore than a movie theater, and more effective if a person wants to be aroused in that they should be governed by the movie industries. Both need to be governed by their creators. London is still the theatrical capital of the world. It has the most plays for the cheapest prices and an atmosphere where no one is showing off new cars or furs, or, for that matter, old cars and old furs." Victor Charles was in the television program The Brian Keith Show, and naturally starring Brian Keith, on November 10th, 1973, and Victor Charles was playing in the role as a building contractor. On November 16, 1973, Victor Charles was in the motion picture Arnold, and he played the role as the minister. The storyline went something like this. In this morbid comedy, the title character is a deceased and quite wealthy man who gets married to his lover, Karen Stella Stevens, so she can inherit his money. My Uncle Victor Charles just couldn't seem to pull away from performing in television programs and motion pictures that kill at least one person or more. He was definitely typecast by Hollywood producers, and once again, it's a crying shame they didn't cast him in classic roles with intelligent dialogues and meaningful storylines. He had recently proven when playing Falstaff in Henry IV Part 1 at the Mark Taper Forum Music Center in Los Angeles at the beginning of 1973, and he was an excellent classic actor and not a buffoon. He was a sensation when speaking the words of William Shakespeare, but Hollywood forced him to speak lesser words of buffoonery and nonsensical whodunits in silly detective plots. He had to make a living, and he had to forfeit his integrity as an actor to put food on his family table. My Uncle Victor Charles continued performing his one-man shows, and he was digging deeply into his belly and heart of memories, and he wanted to challenge the way people perceive others. He was on the offensive in an intelligent manner and educational way to alter the prior decades of American culture. On stage, in television, and in motion picture, romances are usually only allowed for those who are handsome and pretty. To be a pretty woman, she must be thinner and not heavier, and have gorgeous hair and eyes. To be a handsome man, he must have muscles and not a fat belly, and have a strong jaw and glistening blue eyes. He never was allowed to sunbathe under the sun on a sandy beach wearing nothing but a skimpy bathing suit, because that was only reserved for thinner men than he. If he saw a young pretty lass across the room and wished to ask her out for a date, that was only for a younger lad, thinner and more handsome than he. Victor Charles must have loved the motion picture Marty in 1955, starring Ernest Borgnine, who won the 1956 Academy Awards Oscar for Best Actor of the Year. Borgnine didn't look like Clark Gable, Gary Cooper, or Cary Grant, but he had wonderful words to say that was written by legendary screenwriter Paddy Chayefsky. It was a modern-day Beauty and the Beast, where true love shines deeper than the shape of one's body. It also won the Best Picture of the Year in 1956, and on the very same year, Victor Charles won his first Globe Atlas Award for Best Actor of the Year, playing in Volpone at the Old Globe Theater in San Diego, California.